Hello, hello, hello. Permit me to take this opportunity once again to welcome all the faithful viewers of the Sunpoint Global TV. We are back again 2021 with our program, The Debate, and we are shifting from just talking and sensitizing our public to bringing them programs, training programs, which will benefit them so that they will begin to see and experience the different aspirations as they are stated. And for this year, we are beginning with Aspiration 1. That's our target. And we are running Aspiration 1 for about 8 weeks. And for those who want to know what Aspiration 1 talks about, it talks about a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning this year with agriculture, and we know that agriculture is always sustainable, and when it is sustainable, it helps to provide food surpluses for all the citizens, and why not our continent, Africa. Our topic for today is agricultural financial strategies that promote agricultural productivity in Africa. I am Mbolifor Elvis Ambi, your host for the debate, and today I will be having a resource person who will be with me in the studio for 1 hour. This person is a product of the University of Bremen in Germany. He has a first and second degree in agricultural economics and a postdoctorate in agriculture. He just finished a program on waste management and has equally held different posts which are based on agriculture. A square peg in a square hole. Join me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome with me now in the studio Professor Ruben Ajiolu Alabi, who will be telling you on agriculture. Professor, you are welcome on the Sunpoint Global TV platform.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for your beautiful introduction. As we have been told, today we are looking at agricultural financial strategies that will promote agricultural productivity in Africa. With this presentation, we'll be able to raise awareness about lower agricultural productivity in Africa compared with other regions of the world. Then we will relate agricultural productivity with food insecurity in Africa, and we will stimulate a greater debate on how to design the most agricultural spending structures that will be able to help to, number one, increase agricultural productivity in Africa, and ultimately reduce food insecurity, which is a big problem. By the way of introduction, we know that agricultural sector is very important in Africa. It accounts for about 60% of labor force, 20% of total exports, and 17% of GDP in Africa. In fact, it varies from country to country. Like Nigeria is about 25% of GDP, in Botswana is about 3%. But ultimately, almost 1/4 of GDP from Africa comes from agriculture. That emphasizes the importance of the sector to development of Africa. In fact, it has been said that the economic problem witnessed in Africa is due to poor performance of agricultural sector. So this inherent problem in agricultural sectors compromise agricultural productivity. Later we can talk a little bit about some of these problems, land infertility, lack of infrastructures, lack of storage facilities. All these things combine together to compromise agricultural productivities. And this reflected in lower yield, labor productivity, land productivity, and consequently there is food insecurity in the country. And one of the factors that have been implicated for this low agricultural productivity is low public spending, low government spending in agriculture. So the head of state, the president of different countries in Africa, they are aware of that low spending is a major problem that is attributed for lower agricultural productivity in Africa. Therefore, they came up with some of declarations to address this low public spending in agriculture. We talk of Maputo, we talk about Abuja, we talk about Malabo declarations. I will quickly go through some of these declarations briefly for us to know that the governments of different countries in Africa are aware of this problem and they are making attempts to address them. But whether those attempts have yielded positive results is a different ball game, which we can still talk about. The Maputo Declaration is just a declaration that each government of Africa should allocate 10% of their public expenditure to agriculture. And some countries have tried to address that, like Burkina Faso, Malawi, Mozambique. They got close to 10% of their budget being allocated to agriculture. We have some country like Niger, about 9%. But a country like Nigeria, Ghana, they are still below that, 10%. Then the other declaration is Abuja Declaration, and the essence of this is because the low land fertility in Africa should be addressed to increase productivity. So their target is that they want to increase the quantity of fertilizer being used by African farmers from 8 kilogram to 50 kilogram by 2015. And another thing that is embedded in this declaration is that if you increase agricultural growth, you are going to reduce poverty in Africa. So their target is to increase agricultural growth rate to 6%, and by that the poverty will be subsequently reduced. That's the target in Abuja Declaration. The other declaration, the most recent one, is Malabo Declaration. This is more specific and more direct to agriculture. The commitment is to end hunger by 2025, and that will be done by reduce the post-harvest losses by 50%. Currently, the post-harvest loss in African agriculture is about 50%, meaning that half of what is produced is being lost through wastage, pest infestations, diseases, and all that. So the target is to reduce that at least by 50%, and subsequently to reduce undernutrition among the children and among the adults. Then having said that, I just want us to quickly look at food insecurity scenario in Africa. Looking at this figure, you discover that it's always very high in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. The food insecurity is very high, higher than the average for the rest of the world. And so most of the people food insecure, they are residing in Africa. That should be a concern. The other concern is the lower agricultural productivity. The food insecurity is very high, and then the agricultural productivity is very low. You see that in Africa, the food and agricultural productivity is lower than the average for the rest of the world. Then I try to relate the two together, the agricultural productivity and food insecurity. We discovered that they are negatively related. The meaning of that is that if you increase your agricultural productivity, your food insecurity will go down. So almost 1 in 1, and that's about 94%. The meaning of that is that if you double your agricultural productivity, then you will reduce your food insecurity by 100%. And so that we'll still talk about that. Then in table 1, I try to show that it's not only the yield that is very low in Africa, even the labor productivity is very low. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa, you compare with Asia, it means that a farmer is getting almost just 50% of what a farmer in Asia is deriving from agricultural labor. So the total productivity is showing the same thing, that is the lowest in sub-Saharan Africa. Another thing I try to show in that table is that the share of Agric GDP spent on agriculture is equally lower, and that's very important. That what agriculture is contributing to the economy in sub-Saharan Africa is only 4% of it that is being spent on this sector. This is very important, rather than the 10% aggregate. But what agriculture is producing, you are only spending 4% of what agriculture is contributing to the economy to that sector. And you know it's lower for the rest of the world. And when you look at agricultural expenditure per capita, it's equally lower in sub-Saharan Africa. Like 19 US dollar is what the government in Africa is spending on agriculture, whereas in Asia is about $62 per farmer. So that's very important. And then another thing that is important is not the amount of the money the government is spending, but the quality of the spending. What do they spend the money for? When you say you are spending on agriculture sector, what do you spend that money for? For example, it's only 55% of agricultural expenditure that is for capital. The rest is for recurrent expenditure to pay salary, all those non-wages expenses. And to us, for the expenditure to be relevant, to increase productivity, it has to be 60% capital before that expenditure can be said to be productive. Then another thing we do is to look at the compositions of this capital expenditure. What do they spend the money for? Even the capital expenditure, you discover that 38% is spent on subsidy. Then 39% is spent on what they call PCU. PCU is a program coordinating unit. That is the arm that supervises agricultural sector in the country. But you discover that issue like irrigation is not well attended to, research and development is not well attended to, and that can account for the reason for the low productivity of agricultural spending in Africa. We just quickly use the case of Nigeria to show that if you look at it in US dollar rate, the amount of money spent on agriculture is declining over the years. You discover that it's higher before 2000 than after 2000. So that's just to tell us that even the amount is lower on US basis. On Naira basis, it's not much, there's not much difference. Then another important information is to now look at different financial strategies, like the money from the government, public expenditure, then the farmer capital himself, then ODI, the foreign development assistance, or official development assistance. So what will be their impact on the agricultural productivity in Africa? We discovered that the highest is from public spending and followed by the private farmers' capital investment themselves. And then the lowest is from ODI, meaning that the government, Africa cannot rely on ODI to increase the agricultural productivity. The meaning of this figure is that if you increase, for example, agricultural public capital investment by 100%, agricultural productivity in Africa will increase by 16%. That's the meaning of that. Whereas if you increase the ODI by 100%, the agricultural productivity in Africa will increase by only 1%. And so that's to tell us that we should focus a little bit more in how to increase the public capital spending on agriculture, how to make sure that the farmer have more money to invest on their farms. Then we consider the benefit cost ratio of the component of this expenditure, and we discover that irrigation, spending on irrigation bring highest returns. The meaning of that is that if you spend $1 on irrigation project, you are going to get about $5 return. Whereas if you spend $1 on subsidy, you are going to get less than $1 as a return. That is a pointer to us that spending on irrigation will bring more returns to agricultural productivity than spending on other components of the agricultural spending structures. Now we try to look at the subsidy, how much is spent on subsidy, what proportion of agricultural expenditure is allocated to subsidy, then what is the return. You can see a kind of misallocation on this table 4, that where the government of Africa is spending more money, that is why they are getting the least returns. And that does not make economic sense. And that is why it is recommended that if you reallocate the spend, even if you don't increase the amount of the money, But what you just do is that you reallocate in favor of the most productive sector like irrigation, research and development. You are going to get higher returns on the spending rather than the current status quo. Then we compare what how much African countries are spending on their on irrigation compare with other countries of the world. You discover that Asia they spend 37%. I mean 37% of their land is irrigated compare with about just 6% in Africa. So meaning that that is the focus, and that justifies in our the earlier slide that the higher benefit cost ratio is associated with spending on irrigation than otherwise. Then when you look at what proportions of this expenditure is spent on R&D, you discover that like Asia, they spend 72% of their budget, agricultural budget, capital budget on R&D, whereas Africa will spend only 6% of our capital expenditure on R&D, and that tells us a lot of things that is the reason why it's not the proportion of the money that is important, but what is the component, what is the quality, how do you structure those spending. Then just to summarize so that we can have time for questions, we elaborated the fact that the capital agricultural public expenditure in Africa is only just about 55% and it's supposed to be at least 60%. Then we said that spending on irrigation has the highest benefit cost ratio compared with subsidy and other spending components. And another information is that spending on irrigation can induce private investment, like when you have irrigation sectors, farmers can come around and then they can now build by now try to make use of those irrigation facility by investing. Those that don't have farm, they can decide to have farm around that irrigation site, so it induces more agricultural private investment. Now we recommend that agricultural public spending in Africa should be realigned in favor of the most productive component like irrigation, research and development and rural development rather than on subsidy. And the experience has shows that these subsidies does not get to the farmer, and that is why it's the least productive. But the African government, they want to continue on that because of political patronage, because they want people to know that they are doing something, and it's easy to do that, to put their name on the bag of fertilizer that they are the one doing it, but it's the least productive. And the research has shows that smaller irrigation scheme, they are more productive than large big scale irrigation scheme in Africa. Essentially what we are recommending is that the public expenditure in agriculture should be realigned along the most productive component of the spending. Thank you very much for your attentions, and your comments are highly welcome.
Thank you so much, Professor, for that wonderful submission and presentation on agricultural financial strategies that promote agricultural productivity in Africa. And if I listen to you keenly, I can summarize what you said in very few words by saying that more money is spent on agriculture, but it doesn't actually go into agricultural productivity per se. It means that much is disbursed, but now the other expenditures that come into to bring about agriculture, like we talked of salaries and other subsidiary expenses, the money doesn't actually get to be used in agriculture. And you end by recommending that if more money is put into small scale irrigation schemes, we are sure to yield more benefit and more agricultural productivity from such schemes. Thank you so much, Professor. You are really a resource person, and we are happy that you are beginning the debate this year with us, and we'll be running for a couple of weeks. I am sure that the youths who are out there will be motivated, will be empowered. Why not? Some of them will actually get careers just from your presentation. Thank you so very much. I listened with much keen attention, and I have had so much from what you have presented. And I want to equally welcome our viewers who are there interacting on the Facebook page as well as the YouTube page. You're welcome again to 2021. We are beginning on a very powerful note, and this time we are looking at training of our youths so that we don't only end at publicizing the Agenda 2063, but we take them along, we hold their hands, and we walk with them. Because they say, do not go ahead of me because I won't follow. Do not follow me because I may not lead you, but hold my hand and let us go together. Thank you, Professor, for holding our hands already in a some point a social service so that we go together and empower our youths. And we are beginning with a powerful topic, agriculture, which all of us know that if we put our hands on the plow, the productivity will actually be something that we can write home about. Thank you so much. And I will, before taking questions from the viewers, ask you this very pertinent question that I got as you were presenting. Professor, how can agriculture help in achieving a sustainable development in Africa? Because from what you have presented, it shows that something is still lacking somewhere. Do you actually think that if we improve on our agricultural productivity, this can actually bring sustainable development to Africa, to African continent, and to Africans that we are?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the hope of Africa lies on agricultural developments of the region. Number one, we have abundant resources which can be harnessed uh, to be used productively. Then, if you look at sustainable development goal, the two major goal one and goal two is on poverty reduction. Then second one is food insecurity. So where do you get food from the agriculture? In fact, the government have realized that if you increase the agricultural sector by 6%, you are going to reduce poverty in Africa by 50%. Just 6% growth in agriculture can bring the poverty in Africa down. The reason for that is that number one, 60% of Africans are employed in agriculture. So anything that affect the sectors will definitely affect the majority, 60% of those people. So our hope lies in the agriculture. Let's develop that sectors. Developing the sector, we are developing our people. Developing the sectors, we are reducing the poverty. Developing the sectors, we are reducing food insecurity.
Thank you, Prof. You just made mention of food insecurity and that about 60% of our youths or our population is employed in this sector. And we still have food security in Africa despite the efforts that are being made in order for food productivity to be improved. And you made mention of waste. And I would just want to take an example where personally you get a bag of vegetable which is transported about 200, 300 kilometers to come to where you are, and you end up just having half of that bag as vegetable that you are going to consume, and half of it is going as waste. Professor, how can good management in agriculture help to overcome this issue of food insecurity in Africa?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very pertinent question because your production can increase, but you need to control the waste. You need to reduce post-harvest losses. And in this presentation over the week, there's going to be the whole section. One of the weeks, we're going to talk about that, how to reduce waste, food wastage, losses along the food chain, agricultural production in the sector. But to quickly say that the hope is to now increase our processing, food storage processing, and that is very important too along the financial structures. If you look at agricultural projects in Africa, the most of them they hardly allocate any fund for agricultural processing, storage equipment. That's not part of the structures. So we need to think about that we need to, if you reduce 50% of our losses, I think there's going to be more food available for our people. But one of the weeks we are going to do more about that, what can be done, what are some of the things that we need to put in place. But to increase our food security, not only to increase our productivity, we need to reduce our waste and losses along the food chain.
Okay, you say to increase our food to curb the situation of food insecurity. We need to decrease post harvest wastage,
Harvest losses.
increase
Yeah.
our processing, as well as equally improve on storage equipment. Thank you so much. And I would like Prof to take some few seconds, regain your breath with this little jingle that will bring us back to the second part, which is still on questions. And we will be looking to see what the viewers have for us on board, so that Professor, who is a square peg in a square hole, like I said, can throw more light on this. Can we have our jingle? Thank you and welcome back. Our topic for the day is agricultural financial strategies that promote agricultural productivity in Africa. Prof, welcome once again, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
being there on our platform. Yeah, we are looking at agricultural productivity, financial strategy, I beg your pardon, and food insecurity. And you've almost given us a step-by-step way that we can improve on food insecurity or curb the problem of food insecurity, which was decrease post-harvest wastage, increase our processing, equally storage equipment. But Prof, we are looking today at agricultural financial strategies. Let us say that we do not look at what the government can do. What do you think an individual can do if he or she wants to look at agricultural financial strategies? Are there some strategies that an individual can put in place so that he or she, without expecting any funding from anywhere from the initial state, raise some financial finances to bring about an agricultural business?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think the first thing is that we need a platform like this to stimulate our interest and to raise awareness. And that's why I appreciate this kind of platform to let people know the possibility and profitability of this enterprise. And so the first thing is to have interest. And then when you have interest, then one can say, okay, you have to identify which of the sector you want to go to. There are different subsectors. We have animal rearing, we have fishery, we have forestry, we have crop production, we have cash production and cash crop production, we have exports crop production. So the first thing is to first of all identify the sector you want to go to, and then because they have different financial demand and constraint, budget constraint, and that you want to uh, you want to go to. It depends on your number one, you identify which of the sectors, and number two, because the sectors, different sector requires different financial capital outlay. Like animal rearing take more, you need more money for animal rearing than for maize production, for example. So the first thing is to have you have an interest, then identify the sector you want to go to, and then you now think of what amount of money do you need. Then you now think of how do you get the money. There are different. Sometimes you can start with your little capital. You want to raise produce maize, for example. The little capital, you have a farm at the back of your house, you can start with that and all that. But different, we have many subsectors, and these subsectors require different amount of capital. But one can start from somewhere. Right from the back of your house, you can start, and then you take off from there.
Okay, Professor is applying the principle of think big and begin small. That you can
Yeah.
begin just from the back of your little garden, and you talked of having an interest in what you actually want to do, in which type of agricultural sector. Because when we talk of agriculture, many people think just on farming, plowing the lands. But like you well mentioned, we have fishery, we have poultry, we have piggery, We have equally those who are bringing up mushrooms. We have those who are working on snails, rearing snails. We have cattle rearing as well. Some have sheep, some have goats. And so it's a whole system that each person can fit in any of these domains. Professor, you're almost answering a question that I had for you, that I wanted you to elaborate on the different agricultural domains and to tell us, because many people are watching and they are like, okay, we have mentioned quite a good number of different agricultural domains. But which one can be actually lucrative? Which one is that one that you can get into easily without having to stress so much? We are talking about agricultural financial strategies, that your strategy may just be a small one and you go ahead. I want you again to, Professor, to look at, elaborate on the different agricultural domains and which can be very lucrative or advantageous. And surely you will be telling us why, because you are a professional in the domain of agriculture. Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. As we have said, number one is your interest, or first of all, which area, where do you have interest? It's very important to that one will derive the domain. Then number two is to look at the resources. In that area, what is the abundant resources? For example, where you have a lot of water, fishery may be the option. Where you have a lot of water, irrigated farming system can be an option. There's what they call fadama in Nigeria. Fadama is that you have a wetland, and during the dry season you grow vegetable there, and then people are make a lot of money. In fact, World Bank has recognized that it's one of the lucrative business activity. It doesn't take much. You have your vegetable, you plant with vegetable within that time, and then there's a lot of demand for vegetable during the dry season. And that's the time you grow your own. And so, as I've said, so those resources will drive some of your decision, because if you want to grow a particular crop, and then the weather is not favorable in that place, so it's not justified. You can't do that. Then another thing is your budget. Another thing is the market, because when you are growing vegetable, there's a market for that vegetable. So you want to grow poultry, and then there is a market for that. Or you want to produce piggery in a Muslim dominated area, there will not be market. Although you have resources, you have the money, you have the land, so but there is no market for piggery around that area. And so then the climate, the weather, so all those things have to come in place and to determine what to do. But as we have said, one can start in a small way and then you enlarge your scope. You have the little land, or you have a body of water, then you can think of how to do fishery, things like that. So all those things are very important. We need to check your interest, you need to check your resources, you need to look at your budget, you look at the climate, you look at the weather. So when you think of all those things, then you can know where to take off. That can drive your decisions on which domain to invest in.
Professor, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That question, I always was confused myself on how to go about it, but you have thrown so much light, because you see somebody will be producing pigs in an area, like you said, a Muslim dominated area, and he or she is surprised. Why can I be having very healthy pigs and I don't have the market? It means that you equally have to do a feasibility study to know that you have
Yeah,
the market in place. Don't just get carried away with the resources that you have and think that with
yeah,
resources the market will follow. And you equally brought up a very important point where you said, where you have water, you should be thinking of something like the fishery. That's you do fish rearing, and equally you know that if you have to carry out a large farming around that area, water is assured. And like you likely said, small irrigation schemes are more profitable than large irrigation schemes. And you don't end there, you talked of the weather too. You should equally study the weather and know that what you want to produce is weather friendly. When I say weather friendly, it means that the weather will be the type of weather that will cause you to have high agricultural yields. Because if the plant are those long light plants that need much light, and it's an area that doesn't have much light, or that the temperatures are not very high, like we have apples that come from Europe. When you plant and nurse those apples here, some of them grow but are sterile. They do not produce anything, or the seeds do not germinate even at all. Thank you, Professor, for being there. It's been a wonderful program, and we still have 25 minutes to roll on, and hoping that our viewers, those who are following us closely on some point social service, are actually being fulfilled and gaining much knowledge from what we are doing on the some point social service. And I see on the platform, productivity in Africa has been increased by using poisonous chemicals in agriculture. The consumer is in danger in all fields of agriculture. How can this be be counted? That's accounted for. Like we talked of, you talked of the Abuja Declaration, which based on agriculture, if I got that very clearly, and we know that many people would like to feed bio. I want to think that fruits or foods, vegetables that are produced without the use of fertilizer sell more expensively in the market than those that are being fertilized with chemical fertilizers, of course. Professor, can you reconcile this longing for more bio products than those that have been, grown with artificial fertilizer? What are the pros and the cons of these applications?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is where Africa, this is where this platform is very, very important to raise awareness. Number two, this is where Africa can have an advantage. For example, in Germany here, I read the agricultural policy. The policy is to make sure that 30% of the agricultural product is organic. And for more than 5 years now, they have not achieved that. So, but in Africa, we don't, many of our people don't even have money to buy fertilizer, they don't have money to buy chemical. And this is where we can have an advantage, that if our products are organic, they will definitely come to buy from us. And then we are sure that the quality is good and all that. And so, what some people are doing in Africa now is to now use some, I mean, some biological way of controlling the weeds, I mean, like pests and diseases. So the people that are using those chemicals is because of lack of awareness, and that's why our government too needs to be helped. Just like you said, when we are thinking of reducing the use of fertilizer, then they are not thinking of promoting the use of fertilizer. So it's counterproductive. So but what people are doing is that they can use poultry manure. And another thing is that that's why sustainable farm management is important. So when you raise poultry, you use the dropping from the poultry to fertilize your vegetable. You use the poultry manure to fertilize your tomato. So with that, you don't need to buy fertilizer. I've grown maize before. All our years, you don't need fertilizer. If you have poultry, you just carry whatever the poultry droppings, the waste, then you use it to fertilize your farm. Then the maize we got from the farm, we grounded it, we used to feed the poultry.
Okay.
And so that's a sustainable farm management. So number one, our people have to be told in Africa that now the emphasis is no longer on chemical. There is a weed, there is a kind of crops they can use to control the pest. That it has a kind of odor, neems. So when you put the neems on the farm, the pests will not come near your crops. And so these are the area where we just need to educate our people more, that now this time around we have a good advantage. Number one, we don't have resources to buy chemical use fertilizer. Now let's use what we have to produce what we have. And when they need organic product, they will come and get it from us. We just make sure that our processing is fine and all that. I think that's a good area where African can maximize the make advantage of the global market.
Okay, you say our disadvantage is playing to our advantage, that we do not have enough resources to buy fertilizers, and we need equally to educate our people that emphasis is no longer on artificial fertilizer, based on organic manure, of
Wow.
course, and that we can equally, instead of using insecticides and pesticides, we can use biological control method. This program today is actually a competence-based approach that we are using, teaching the people how to solve their own problems with what they have and with their own resources or hands around them. Thank you, Prof, so much. I'm so happy that you are there, and the answers are coming in so fluently, and I am sure that our viewers are very, happy that we have you today on the program. Professor, I have so many questions, and I will just keep going on with the questions. We notice that most of our diasporas, when they come to Africa, they are more interested in real estate businesses. Many of them do not see the importance of getting into agriculture, investing into agriculture and making Africa great through agriculture. And I want to remind all those who are watching us that the Some Point Social Service, the Some Point Global TV, is aimed at publicizing the Agenda 2063, get our youth so involved in all that is in that agenda, because we are the ones who will benefit from this program. Like it is said, it is a program shaped for Africans by Africans. And Prof, I want to ask you a question on the role that diasporans can play in the development of the agricultural sector. How can they come in? What can they do to make our agricultural sector worth writing home about? An agricultural sector that will promote agricultural productivity in Africa. And like you said, $1 in irrigation brings about an income of about $5 when it is well done. And I am just saying the diasporans can come in and this will be well done. Professor, how can they come and what role can they play to increase agricultural productivity and decrease food insecurity in Africa?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the area we should be thinking about is the area of processing. As you have said, people produce a lot for now, but many of them are being lost. So why can't we help them to do the processing? Now, we can get the capital from here, buy the equipment, and do the processing. But the major problem to the diasporas is that even the real estate you are talking about, many of them have been disappointed. They will send money to Africa, their brother will waste the money, or their friend. They say they are building house for them and there's no house over there. So what I think the area where I'm thinking this platform can help is that just like we are having business class, we can have a kind of organization in Africa where we assemble competent and reliable people that can manage resources. So those ones we rely on them, we have tried them over the time, we know they cannot disappoint. So they can be a good channel because the diasporans have been disappointed. Somebody was talking to me of recent that, okay, they wanted to go into banana production in Africa, but the fear is that I hope somebody will not, will not just embezzle the money. So that trust is a problem. So we need to use this platform to establish the platform. People who have tried over the years, and then we can say, okay, we are sure in Cameroon we have at least 3 people that can manage resources. Number one, we want to identify the area we want to go to, just like we said, it can be an irrigation system. And then people pay based on the use. We dig a kind of borehole for them, then there's a way you control it. When you use the water, you pay certain amount of money. Number one, we are helping them. Number two, there's a return to maintain that investment. That's number one. But who is going to build the borehole? When you send money to Africa, are we sure they will use the money to do the borehole? So that is people have money and they want to invest in Africa, but there's a bigger problem is that they are disappointed. There's a lack of trust. So I'm appealing, the CEO is listening to me now. We can think along that line to make sure that we assemble. There don't need to be too many, but people that are competent, people that are reliable. Then diaspora, we can link them up. That if you want to do this they are going to help you, as they will manage the fund for you, and then from that we can scale up. If we do it in Cameroon, we do it in Nigeria, we do it in Benin Republic. Before you know, we can cover the whole of Africa. So we should be thinking of the irrigation scheme. We should be thinking of processing. Do you know that chocolate that we are eating in Europe everywhere, the farmer that produce cocoa is only getting $1 out of $10 of chocolate. If you buy chocolate for $10, the man that produce that cocoa in Cameroon is getting only $1 out of the $10. The others belong to the middlemen and then the processors in Belgium. So why can't we know some of us are people, some of our people are working in chocolate industry. Why can't we study that? And then we go and replicate it. Don't bring your cocoa to Europe. We produce cocoa in Cameroon. Let's produce our chocolate in Cameroon. We are going to create job for our people. We are going to, the farmer will get more money out of the cocoa he produce. No, things like that. Especially the area of processing is where our people are really having problem. And at this level, we should be thinking of that. But we have to control for the trust. We have to make sure that we have trust. We have competent people that can do that. I think from this platform we can escalate that and see how that can be done.
Thank you
Then there
so
are
much.
other sectors too that where people can invest. Like the person that talked to me about banana, plantain, that can be done. And then we can even teach them how do you process, for example, banana now. If you want to cut banana, these are simple things. You make sure you cut it, it doesn't fall to the ground, so that it will not, the body will not be scratched. Because if that one is scratched, it cannot get to the Europe market just because of the scratch on the body. So how do we educate them? That's agricultural extension. That's another aspect that we can, the diaspora will be able to help Africa. But majorly the problem with the trust.
You emphasize on trust, and I think you have a reason because it gets so painful that you send money for a project to be executed, and they keep telling you that the project is moving on so well, just for you to come back thinking that you're coming to pump in more money to see how to improve on the project, just to reach here and discover that nothing has been done. It's so heartbreaking. And I think that people would actually have to recognize the efforts of others, because when you even do the farm that you're opening, the person controlling gets his own small money from there because he is on a budget, he is paid. And so, what will come out from it, he will not be exempted from the proceeds of that farm because he keeps controlling. And that is already a sort of employment for him. So, I think that people should learn to build trust and to make people equally be able to entrust small things in their hands. Because when you talk of trust, and the way I looked at you say it, you are a victim of such circumstances, and you must have entrusted small things in the hands of people and they have not done it. But we are not losing hope. We are still
Yeah.
thinking that something can be done positively, of course, to reharness the trust, build the trust, and be able to do things back home. When you are not around, you will and must have to delegate functions to people who have to do the work. And I want to use this opportunity, like you said already, for all the diasporans who are watching us. All hope is not lost. Do not relent your effort. Try again. Giving up is not an option. Thank you so much for listening to us, Prof. I wanted to get into your domain, a product of the Bremen University in Germany, having worked with agricultural expenditure review and waste management. I wanted you to give us some information, because when we talk of agricultural productivity, we're looking at agricultural expenditure review, because you may have the budget and you don't know how to actually allocate it properly, and waste management. We have just about 10 minutes. I want you to give us a recap on how what you have studied actually goes to play a long role in agricultural productivity. Prof, I want to get a word from you as far as this is concerned.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the last project we did, one of the things we discovered, which is very important, is that In Europe, nothing is waste. Like the water from the toilet, everywhere it has a place where it's collected and then recycled. Then the food that we waste, and because as we have said, Africa produce, we have food insecurity, and then we waste a lot of food. So by here that is not done. The food waste is collected from your kitchen. There is a management of it. Then it's turned to fertilizer. So everything is like that. The paper we use, the paper is recycled, is turned to another paper you are going to use again. So and that is where another area where Africa has to come up, the recycling, our waste management. And waste is not a real problem in Europe. It's managed, well managed. The thing is recycled, and then you have the paper bag. The food is recycled, becomes your fertilizer. The urine from your from your toilet is processed, and then they turn it to organic fertilizer, which is heavily being used. I think those are some of another area where we need to think along the line to make sure that how do we do that. Then the government have to be involved. Then there should be a public-private participation, because that is done here. It's not the government that control everything. It's private. The waste managers along the waste management line, there are private individuals that does that. And so that is related to their agricultural activities. Whatever they get from the household is being recycled, is taken back to the farm, and then the thing from the farm comes back to they call it a circular economy. I think Africa have to do that. Another thing we recommended in our study is to have a kind of peer review of Africa's waste management system. They have that in Europe. So they set a target for themselves, like you must recycle 50% of what is generated at home. So every country in Europe has that. Germany has their own target, and Netherlands have their own target. So over the year they will review how closer are you to that target. So we recommended that for Africa too, that there should be a kind of that review that will stimulate them, that you have to do something about your pollutions, recycle of your product and all that. I think that's another good way to go. We have to. There's a kind of circular economy that is going on along the world, and Africa must not be left behind.
Thank you so much, Professor, for those who are joining us. Our program on agriculture and the training, of course, on agricultural financial strategy is going to run for about 2 months. We will be on agriculture because we want to lay the ground foundation so that there are some people up out there who say they are not employed, whereas the lands are still there. When you move around Africa, you see vast lands not exploited, and many people are not actually aware that agriculture can just be a source of employment and a source of livelihood for them. So we are taking this program on the Sunpoint Global TV with the Sunpoint Social Services to tell our youths that there is much employment out there in agriculture, and they just have to choose a domain, look for, get the interest, of course, like you said, look at the resources, study the weather conditions that they have and the climate that they have in their different areas, and then they will be able to set up a good, sustainable agricultural system. We still keep encouraging the diaspora, of course, who some are not very interested again to come back home even because of the many disappointments that they have had. But I think we are working closely with diaspora, and like you rightly said, we'll be looking for a way of continuously encouraging them, talking to them to know that home is always home. Professor, we are going to the end of our program, and I wanted to wish to ask you, having worked on all these programs, how agriculture can be improved, how food insecurity can be taken care of, how we can manage our waste. What proposal do you have for our African government or those stakeholders? What word can you give them? Because we are looking for a better Africa, a better continent, and to improve our agriculture. What do you think they have been missing out?
I want to talk to our government that agriculture is the hope of Africa. And I told the IMF the youth unemployment is a time bomb in Africa. We see that happening in Nigeria last year and SARS. And there's the abundance of land. Why can't you encourage this young one to go to agricultural sectors? And you cannot encourage them if you don't open up the sectors, if you don't encourage them. Let's say there is a money where people can go and borrow and then they can go and do farming. So all those things have to open up, that there's an opportunity. Everybody, you can come for maybe $10,000 if you're a university graduate in agriculture. We can even start with that. That you study agriculture, then you're entitled to $10 and $10,000 to go and open up. So that one will take certain percentage of this youth from the road, from the streets. 70% of people that were graduating in Africa, they are not employed, and they are graduate, they are educated, and they are on the road. So why can't you take them? Let's even start with, if you study agriculture, you're entitled to $10,000 in a year to go and open up farming. Then we'll start with that. We'll take those ones out of this road. Number one, they are engaged, they are employed. Then when they are employed, they too, they will employ people on the farm. Then they are producing food. We are reducing our food insecurity. We are reducing unemployment. We are reducing the time bomb, so that they will not constitute a problem to the whole world. So the African head of state and federal government, head of government, they should think of how to maximize what we have in abundance, how to make use of it, which is the land, which is agriculture, and that's the best way to do. And we should be thinking of how to produce more in organic way, and then on sustainable development. I mean, sustainable integrated agricultural system where you can produce maize using the poultry droppings and all that. I think it's the best way for us to go.
Thank you so much, Professor. It's been a wonderful program. We are on agriculture, and our program is going to run for 2 months. And I am sure that our youth will really be empowered. You have given us so much information just in one session, and we are so elated to have you on our program. Just to go through some of the key things that I noted, we talked of poor performance in our agricultural sector, and that we have food insecurity, and you have given us a number of ways that we can curb this situation by improving, reducing our post-harvest losses, and equally trying to process our own food here so that we will enjoy the food. Like you talked of chocolate, the farmer having just 1% of 10% of chocolate that is produced, that is really painful for that type of farmer. So if we had to produce here and equally process, much will be deduced from such. And you talk of quality spending equally, that our government, our stakeholders should spend on the agriculture itself and not looking at subsidiary programs or other expenses that are by the side. And you equally made mention of small irrigation schemes being more beneficial than large irrigation schemes, and that people who want to get into farming or agricultural productivity should first of all look at their area of interest, study their weather, and use organic manure, because we have much organic manure that we waste, of course, and that is supposed to come back to be a benefactor or to be an improvement on our soils so that the yields will actually be what we expected or expect it to be. Thank you, Professor, so much for being here. Thank you for your time. When you were invited, you did not hesitate to join the program, and we are happy and thinking equally that other people will follow your footsteps so that we will be together on this platform to encourage, to teach, and to train our youths so that they will actually benefit from this Agenda 2063. And as a reminder, we are basing today, or we are taking up with Aspiration 1, which talks of it talks about the prosperous Africa, which is based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. I think, Professor, you have given us just so much for today. We will be ending the program while equally inviting each and everyone to be there again next week, because we'll be having financial inclusion and agricultural production frontiers in Africa. And that is still going to be talking about finances and agriculture and productivity and curbing our food insecurity. That is how we had it for today, the debate. Thank you, Professor, and we are hoping to have you in good health next week. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye bye.